Welcome to the first of this year's 2 candidate nights. My name is Kate Larsen, and I am the Assistant Director at the Everett Public Library, and I'm here on the behalf of the Friends of the Everett Public Library. My co-MC is Tom Norcott, representing the Council of Neighborhoods. I want to take an opportunity to thank the many people who, without their help, this event would not be possible. This is truly a community event, and it took a community effort to put it together. The City of Everett's Office of Neighborhoods, Communications and Media Department, Media Relations Department, the neighborhood associations, Evergreen Middle School, and the Friends of the Library have all contributed to the event, to the effort to produce yet another candidate night. This year we are very excited to have the participation of Evergreen Middle School AVID students. AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. They are not only helping us with setup and teardown, but they have also crafted 2 questions for our candidates from their unique perspective as youth living in and attending school in Everett. We are thrilled to have them engaged in the local democratic process. Let's give them a hand. Thank you also to Evergreen's Assistant Principal, Lauren Kleinschmidt, for helping facilitate student involvement. Also new this year is this event's appearance on social media. Special thanks to City of Everett's Pipa Escalante for streaming this event live through the Everett Public Library's Facebook page. The video will be archived at the Everett Channel's YouTube page. So right now I'm going to turn this over to Tom, who is going to go over the rules and the agenda for the evening.
Thank you, Kate. My name's Tom Norcott, and I am the chairman of the Harborview Seahurst Glenhaven Neighborhood Association. I'm also the secretary for the Council on Neighborhoods. And welcome, and thank you for being here. This is a new world record this evening for attendance, and so I appreciate you being a part of that. Thank you very much. The whole purpose behind this event this evening is to educate and help voters become informed so that they can make informed decisions in the upcoming election. And so I appreciate you for taking the time out of your personal life to be here and invest that time in this evening. So thank you. I know the seating is not user-friendly, so if you need to move around so that you can see the candidates, please do so. I'm going to stand closer to this microphone like I'm told to do. I'd also like to recognize the neighborhood groups that have supported this thing. So this is being co-sponsored by the Bayside and Boulevard Bluffs neighborhood, Cascade View, Holly, Lowell, Northwest, Pinehurst, Beverly Park, Twin Creeks, View Ridge, Madison, Westmont, and the City of Everett Office of Neighborhoods, and the Evergreen Middle School, and the Friends of the Everett Public Library. There's a lot of people that are in the audience this evening that have invested a lot of their personal time into leading and attending neighborhood meetings. They are the grassroots kind of community for the City of Everett. There's 19 of them. Most of the people that are in this audience are probably familiar with them. If you aren't, be sure to grab Kate or meet myself or Wendy McClure after the meeting, and we appreciate hearing from you. I would also like to take a moment of silence to recognize those that are less fortunate than us that are here this evening, the hurricane victims, the homeless, those affected by health conditions, and all impacted by senseless acts of terrorism. Thank you. The schedule for this evening is that each one of the candidates is going to have 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and they are then going to answer 2 questions that they received about a week ago. They have 3 minutes to do that, and then they will be fielding questions that most of you have filled out in the audience this evening, and we have only an opportunity for 8 of those questions, and I apologize in advance for not having more time. We're going to give each one of the candidates 3 minutes each to answer those questions that came in from the audience. If you don't get your question answered this evening, I know these two ladies would be more than happy to hear from you directly. And so that would be the only way I can explain not being able to answer every question that we have. These are the rules for this evening. They're posted right here. We're asking everybody to please be courteous. We're also holding off on the applause during the question and answer period, please, so that we have enough time to get through this. Please, and you already have submitted your questions, and we have 100 of them here. So thank you, by the way, for taking the time to do that. And the questions are either directed to one or the other person or both candidates, but I think this evening they're going to be for both candidates. Right? Okay. And that's enough out of me. Thank you.
Okay. So on behalf of Everett's communities, we especially want to thank mayoral candidates Cassie Franklin and Judy Tuohy for appearing tonight to allow the voters another chance to get to know them. As Tom said, they've been provided in advance with 2 prepared questions, and they will have 5 minutes each to answer them after they have each had 5 minutes to introduce themselves. At that point, we move on to the audience questions and the 2 prepared student questions. And finally, just a few quick notes before we begin. All of you here are here tonight because you care about the community and about Everett's future. Please consider actively joining your neighborhood association and the Friends of the Library. These are just 2 ways you can really make a difference, no matter if it's an election year or not. Please ask me or any of the volunteers here tonight for more information if you want it. Also, please plan to attend the City Council and the School Board event next week. That's on Monday, as an earlier start time of 6:30. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the introductions, and we're going to start with Cassie Franklin, just out of alphabetical order.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here as a candidate for Everett Mayor for your consideration. I know we all remember where we were on Tuesday morning 16 years ago today. On this very important day, I want to thank our first responders here in our city and across our country for their courage and sacrifice. We appreciate everything you do for us each and every day. I'm running for mayor because I'm passionate about our city, and I believe I have the skill set and experience to address our challenges and move us forward. I chose Everett to raise my daughter together with my husband because we fell in love with this community. In Everett, we care about one another and our community. My career has been in service. I've worked in education, animal welfare, human services, and public service. I care deeply about the health and well-being of our city and our citizens, and I've been honored to serve Everett as CEO of Cocoon House, helping homeless youth transition out of poverty, stabilize, and break the cycle of homelessness. As a city council member and current vice president of council, I've been honored to serve on multiple committees and boards. Currently, I serve as the Public Safety Committee Chair and liaison to the Safe Streets program. I've been honored to serve as a volunteer, and I've been engaged in a number of nonprofit organizations doing everything from cleaning up our local parks to making policy recommendations around equity, poverty, and working on tangible efforts and solutions to homelessness, addiction, and exploitation. Our region has enormous potential, and yet, like cities across the country, our community is facing some big challenges. Street-level social issues, property crime, gang violence, and many symptoms of poverty. My vision is to improve public safety and grow living wage jobs by addressing some of the root causes of our challenge. By addressing street-level conditions of homelessness, addiction, and mental illness with innovation and compassion, we will strengthen our business, neighborhoods, and community for all. I am the candidate with the street-level experience as an executive in developing, leading highly effective programs in preventing and alleviating homelessness, reducing gang violence, and helping youth and families out of poverty. And I have the executive experience of running a large organization to ensure I know how to work with limited resources and balance a budget. As a member of the Everett Streets Initiative, I was part of a team of 23 community leaders who came up with recommendations to address the street-level social issues, such as increasing shelter and housing, expanding day centers, collaborating with other jurisdictions. But we need to do more. As mayor, I will work with community leaders in an open and transparent process to revise the Streets Initiative strategies to meet the changing needs of our community. I will increase coordination and collaboration between first responders, schools, faith-based organizations, minority leaders, businesses, and nonprofits. We cannot afford for our systems to work in silos. We really have to work together in collaboration, ensure all voices are heard, and create and invest in collaborative solutions to work on the unique and diverse communities that we have here in Everett. I will advocate fiercely and work with experts in the field to address the opioid epidemic with expanded detox and a wide range of treatment options, and I will partner with developers and affordable housing providers to ensure housing is obtainable to our community members. Strategies such as creating a county-wide strategy and a housing project pipeline will help us leverage local dollars to compete for state and federal resources. We are growing. We need to plan for and create opportunities for growth. Finally, as mayor, I will work to retain, attract, and grow living wage jobs now and for the future. To support this, I will expand the Economic Development Department of the city. Growing our business brings much-needed revenue to the city and creates jobs right here in our local community. I will establish a diverse and transparent task force to work with expanded Economic Development Office to make recommendations to jumpstart our economy and grow jobs in different industries. I will work to take care of our existing businesses, both large and small, supporting aerospace, the military, healthcare, our naval base, as well as nurturing our small businesses, with a special focus on supporting veteran, minority, and women-owned businesses in our community. It is our small businesses who together will grow our economy. And I will continue to be a champion for education, higher education, and the trades. Youth and families need pathways out of poverty. And training and education is the best path forward. Youth are the workforce leaders of our future, and we need to provide them with those opportunities. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak and answer questions this evening. I'm excited to bring my executive experience to address many of our core challenges in our city, and I'm also excited to work together with you on our vision for Everett's future. I ask for your support and vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming here tonight. This is a great crowd. Really honored that you're all here. I do want to say a word of thanks and remembrance of this day 16 years ago that changed so many of our lives and changed the way we live. So, and thank you to the first responders for that day. I decided to run for mayor because when I was growing up in Everett, our city had a real sense of community. It was a place where everyone had a home, where there were plentiful jobs and good education, a place where we felt safe in our parks and on our streets. It was a place I was proud to call home. And while I still continue to be proud to call home, I believe we must do more to ensure that the future of Everett remains bright and vibrant for our kids and future generations. I was born and raised in Everett and have continued a lifetime connection. After high school, I earned a education degree from Central Washington University. My professional experience spans over 32 years. It includes education, retail business management, and for the last 22 years as director of the Shack Arts Center. In my tenure, I grew the organization from a small nonprofit to a larger business, with over 70,000 visitors and participants each year, as well as reaching out to the entire county with our education programs. I successfully led the development of our mixed-use facility that includes 40 affordable housing units, jobs, commerce, as well as being an essential cultural amenity. I've served on City Council since 2014. I'm currently Council President. I chaired the Public Safety Committee for 2 years, and I sit on the Budget Committee for this year. I'm Council Liaison. My Council Liaison assignments include the Library Board, Senior Center, Office of Neighborhoods, Casino Road stakeholders. I established the neighborhood liaisons in January so that the city council members could reach out and get to know each of the 19 neighborhoods. I also championed the South Everett Library expansion, which was direly needed. That community needs more access to library services as well as internet and computers. And also, I championed to extend assistance on our water bills to all qualifying households, not just seniors and disabled folks. And I lowered the annual business fee for the smallest of businesses. I bring my strong financial expertise, my ability to work with diverse interests, and my commitment to results. and my lifelong connection to Everett to the job as your mayor. That's why I will work for you every single day during my tenure as mayor. And my top priorities include, first of all, keeping our city safe. That means we must fully staff our police force, we must enforce our laws, and we must focus on restoring our sense of safety and security in our homes and in all of our neighborhoods. And secondly, the priority for us is reducing the drug addiction and homelessness that is in our community. There's no denying that Everett, our region, and the entire nation are facing an opioid epidemic. We see it in nearly every neighborhood. Opioid addiction is an illness, plain and simple, and it should be treated as such, and this is a public health crisis. So we need to expand our treatment options. We need to look for those that are looking for help. We need to reduce the stigma that is attached to this disease and its treatment. We should support our community cleanup groups that continue to work hard to make sure that our neighborhoods and parks are safe for our children. And while there are many that are homeless because of their addiction, or they're addicted because they are homeless, there are still others out on the streets for a myriad of reasons. And though we have been working on this for several years, we're just not seeing enough improvement. It's time for a new approach and fresh ideas. It's time for action rather than talking points. As I've been knocking on thousands of doors across the city, I hear time and again that our residents do not feel represented and heard. That's why I started our council liaison program. We need to connect city council and the city with our neighborhood associations, and why I'm the only candidate in this race to voted for council by districts. Every resident in every neighborhood should feel that their voice will be heard at City Hall, and under my administration they will be. As we are able to address my top 3 priorities, we will then find a safe, inclusive city where neighborhoods are invigorated and our citizens are able to reach their full potential through education, quality housing, job and job training, commerce, volunteerism, culture, and recreation. Everett will be where we all want to live, where businesses will want to be, and where we will have a wonderful quality of life. My time's up? And that went fast. You get to finish.
Okay, and candidates, I didn't point this out earlier, but I think you've noticed your timekeepers are right here in the front row. And we're hearing feedback already that people are having trouble seeing you, so if you wouldn't mind standing when you're speaking. And take your microphone with you, of course. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the prepared questions. So again, there are 2 of them. And since we started with Cassie Franklin first with the introductions, we'll start with Judy first on the prepared questions. So the first prepared question is, as mayor, how would you ensure that the city and community reduce their carbon footprint?
Well, as we've all, that was loud. Sorry about that. As we've all seen with Hurricane Irma and Harvey, climate change is real. And despite our federal government, what they think or don't think, we know that we have to tackle this. We have to take charge of our own community. We may not be able to reverse all the damage that has happened, but we do need to slow it down as much as we can. Cities must be at the forefront of these efforts, and the solutions include reducing our fossil fuels, reducing our energy consumption, and preserving our forests. Everett is behind other cities in our efforts to address climate change. As mayor, I want to position the city to lead the way in reducing our carbon footprint. Cities need to be at the forefront of this effort because local governments regulate the 2 biggest sources of carbon emission, buildings and transportation. Actions that we can take to make a difference. We need to be buying our fleet vehicles that are either electric or hybrid. Now, we do have electric buses on order, but this should be a purchasing standard. We need to be providing real incentives for our employees to take non-automotive means of transportation to and from work. And we need to upgrade our building systems to ensure that our lighting and heating is as efficient as possible. Additionally, we can look at our zoning codes to ensure we're encouraging dense mixed-use development so that people can live and walk to work. We need to expand and expedite our work on our complete streets throughout the city so that we are a walkable and bikeable city. Another plan we have on the shelf is our bicycle plan. While we've started it, we still haven't made all those final connections to make it a real, doable, viable bike plan. We need to evaluate how we can make Everett Transit a more viable transportation system for all of the city. And we need to plan on expanding and managing our urban forest. Trees do make a difference, and we need to keep hold of our resource and develop more. We also need to look at the safety of our coal and oil trains. We need to make sure that we have updated and they're improving their safety regulations. We need to better understand what our greenhouse gas output is as a city. We need to create ambitious goals and real solutions to cut our greenhouse gases and uphold our local government, citizens, and businesses to follow and ensure that we hit those goals. I will utilize the Climate Action Plan and Advisory Committee, including citizens like Jackie here, to guide us on the path forward, and we will work regionally to have all the cities to reducing their carbon footprint. Thank you.
Okay, we're changing it up here with standing. We need our notes too. Okay, so reducing the city and community's carbon footprint is critical. We're all painfully aware of climate change, especially considering the smoke and haze of the last few weeks. Let me tell you, doorbelling in that was not an easy task, doorbelling and trying to breathe at the same time. So we're seeing the devastating effects of environmental change, increasing forest fires, droughts, floods, and high-intensity storms. This is a big and daunting issue, and Everett can and should be a leader. My first step as mayor is to reduce Everett's carbon emissions and other pollutions will be to ensure that we are on track to implement the city's 2011 Climate Action Plan, which has set a clear path for reducing our carbon footprint, including steps such as upgrading our water stations to high-efficiency pumps, increasing water conservation measures wherever possible, and identifying and implementing improvements to make our city buildings more energy efficient. We can also change out Everett's transit buses to electric buses, and we're on path to do that, and update the entire city vehicle fleet to electric as we upgrade those vehicles. We need to take care of our urban forests and plant more trees wherever we can. And I want to look for opportunities to reduce our carbon footprint in each of our departments. For example, I will look for efficiencies in police and fire stations and their vehicle fleets, including increasing the number of bicycle police, which is great because one of my other priorities is increasing community policing. I also want to implement Everett's master bike plan. It's high time that this is a bike-friendly city. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, so biking is very important to me, and I'd love to see our city be as bike-friendly as there. I will also look at how Everett can become a net zero emitter of carbon. A net zero goal is a very ambitious goal, but I believe in setting big, audacious goals. It is my hope that a net zero goal will inspire our whole community and bring local ingenuity to the most pressing challenge of our time. We all need to do our part. So watching the news is horrifying right now, but at least it serves as a severe and sad wake-up call to us all. Given the changes we are seeing, we need to prepare as a city. I will work climate change into the city's forecasting and planning models and future development. And I will work with our neighborhood and community leaders, as well as public works and public safety teams to build Everett's resilience to climate changes and natural disasters so that we're prepared in our neighborhoods and citywide. Thank you.
The second question that the candidates received a little less than a week ago is, how will you motivate commercial property owners to seek family wage businesses to occupy empty storefronts?
I'm first again, right? Okay. Should have kept the mic. All right. So it's definitely sad to walk through our city and see vacant storefronts, these once beautiful historic buildings. Far too often I see a new small business open only to see them close a few months later. Increasing economic development and growing family wage jobs is one of my two top priorities for our city. To motivate property owners to seek family wage businesses, I will focus on public safety, code enforcement, housing, and incentives. First, we must address safety, as businesses won't be successful unless we change the conditions on our streets. If people don't feel safe, they won't bring new businesses here. As mayor, addressing these street-level social issues is my top priority. In addition to addressing the root causes of these issues, I will work to fully staff our police force and make sure our officers are visible and engaged wherever possible. We can't arrest our way out of problems of homelessness and addiction, but through a combination of outreach and enforcement, we can address some of these challenges. We can get people who need help into services and off the streets and go after drug dealers and criminals. We can make our streets safer. Second, we can use code enforcement tools to encourage absentee landlords to fix their properties to at least minimum standards. Some properties have fallen into such disrepair that they meet the standard for urban blight. Other cities have taken it upon themselves to form public development authorities to acquire blighted properties. Pittsburgh, for example, used something like this as a tool for creating a vibrant international district in an area that used to be blight. As mayor, I'd be willing to explore all these tools we have available to create conditions for success. Third, we need housing. Not only do we lack affordable housing and housing in general, but businesses need people living in the area before they can thrive. People who live in an area spend 3 times more than people who work or visit that area. That's been one of our challenges. Some businesses have not been successful because we don't have enough people and housing to sustain them. As mayor, I'll work closely with the port on their development, as well as work with them to grow family wage jobs in our deepwater port, a vital resource for our naval base, aerospace, and working port, who are all family wage employers. Likewise, I'll continue to focus on how we can encourage new development in our urban core, such as development incentives. Lastly, for current owners or those who are willing to invest in their property, the city may be able to offer other incentives. Some cities have facilitated grants and loans for storefront improvement programs, and there are grants and public funding resources available for housing and historic preservation. We need to explore all those opportunities. We can make Everett an even better place to live and work by taking these steps and investing in economic development, attracting new businesses that bring vitality and family wage jobs to Everett, such as Funko, and support a vibrant arts and culture scene in Everett to unleash the city's creative potential. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Well, in my role at the Shack Arts Center, we are a commercial property owner in downtown Everett. And I will say from experience, the biggest challenge businesses have is public safety. We have been working for several years trying to deal with, and all of our neighboring, either the people and businesses on some of the drug-related activity that we have on our block. And I will say businesses, all over the city have the same issue. We need to help. Safety is the #1 concern. So when you talk about how to motivate businesses to locate into Everett, we must first ensure public safety. That's the top priority. That said, Everett is one of the most beautiful cities and is so attractive to business. And they will locate here when they feel safe, and we need quality housing for their employees, as well as great schools, an investment in our infrastructure, as well as good amenities, because businesses will locate where their employees want to live. We need to ensure that our workers have skills and skill training. WSU, as well as Everett Community College, are essential partners, as well as other job training organizations and companies that support internships and apprentice programs. But job growth also comes from small businesses, and we need to nurture these businesses. I will create or expand from an existing entity, an organization like a merchant association, to support small businesses and give them a connection and a voice with the city. We need a better communication and marketing plan for different retail zones throughout the city. And we need more resources for entrepreneurs, and such as an incubator facility and incentives. Tourism depends on small businesses to make and will make our city the place visitors want to come, whether they are here for a destination stop, an event, a conference, outdoor recreation. Tourism is a win-win for all. There are a lot of other things we can do to help small businesses. I initiated the reduction of the annual business fee for the smallest of businesses, and I'm sure there's other things that we can also do. But downtown Everett is the core, is the heart of our city. And to make it as vibrant as we all want, with all the storefronts filled, we do need to build more density in the downtown core. We need about 1,000 more residents that live there to be truly vibrant city. We need to pass policies to allow tools for urban revitalization. And while we cannot force owners to reduce their rents, I will consider incentives for filling downtown vacancies. We did that a few years ago with artist studios in the empty storefronts. We need to develop a marketing plan for the entire downtown to promote all the businesses and take advantage of the current tourism with offering more year-round attractions. I've worked in the downtown core for 22 years, grown a business to a large one, and I've seen and talked to many of the visitors as they come to town. I guarantee you businesses and visitors will come if we have a safe
Judy,
city.
you're out of time.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to the submitted questions. And just to let you know how this is working, we have our question screeners that are over here at the table, and what they're doing is they're going through those questions and trying to locate themes for reoccurring themes. So we're hoping that we're going to at least hit on many of those themes that are coming up. Also, candidates, for these questions, the response time is different. It's just 3 minutes instead of 5. So we'll start with the first one, and Cassie's going first this time, right?
No.
Or you guys are going to keep track of that?
We're pretty
Great. Okay. And also, I just want to mention, I'm going to read, both Tom and I are going to read these questions verbatim. So this isn't me speaking, it's you speaking. So this one is about transportation. The question is, most people want a transportation system that gets them to their jobs, to rapid transit, and to entertainment events in a timely and efficient manner. Per your review of Everett Transit 20-year plan, do you think that their current proposal will provide that for the Everett citizens? What changes to the proposed Everett Transit 20-year plan would you suggest? And I'll read that again, since that's a long question. Most people want a transportation system that gets them to their jobs, to rapid transit, and to entertainment events in a timely and efficient manner. Per your review of Everett Transit 20-year plan, do you think that their current proposal will provide that for Everett citizens? What changes to the current proposed Everett Transit 20-year plan would you suggest?
Okay, that's a big question. But if we are really to develop as a city in the 21st century, we need to ensure that our transit system can serve our citizens. We know that many of the younger generation folks, they would prefer not to even have a car, and that's a great way to do. So what we really need to do is make sure that our transit system is planning for our future growth. We are planned at 25% increase over the next 10 years. That's about 28,000 people. So we need to, when we have the job centers and when we have the high-density residents, we need to make sure that we're fulfilling that need of making sure that our transit system will meet those needs. We need to analyze our population growth. We need to tailor our transit system to meet that. We need to expand the transit-oriented development along our transit corridors so that residents can depend on transit to get them home and conveniently and efficiency. We need to conduct an evaluation of our cost structure to ensure we're operating in the most effective manner, and we need to have a marketing plan. We need to get people excited about riding the bus. We need to spend some time really challenging our community to get out and ride the bus. And we need to examine how we interact with our other transit systems like community transit and ST. We need to identify where there's gaps and overlaps and efficiencies. Okay?
We tried to prepare for every question, so have a few notes, but not all. So the question is, people want a system that gets them around and whether the current plan addresses that. So the current plan is not a 20-year plan, in my opinion. It is a short plan, and so we're looking at short-term goals, 5, 10 years, but that is not a 20-year plan, and we not only need a 20-year plan, but we need a plan far beyond that. So I think first and foremost, we need to actually create a long-term strategic plan for Everett Transit. We need to ensure that our transit system is supporting new and developing transit-oriented development areas where we need to connect to ST3, those future stations, and we need to better serve our neighborhoods. You know, we hear very often at the council concerns that people aren't getting the service they need in their neighborhoods, yet we also don't have riders. So we need to talk to our non-riders. Why are they not riding Everett Transit? What we need to hear from all of you. Why did you take the bus here today? And if so, why? If no, why not? Right? So that is the system that we need to serve this community. And I don't think our current plan addresses all of those things. Talking to our citizens and engaging with those that are not riding. It's really about connectivity. We need to connect to SWIFT. We need to explore what Everett Transit needs to do and what community transit needs to do. And we need to ensure that we are prepared for light rail coming into our community. I used to live in Germany, and I lived in Germany for 7 years, and I didn't have a car, and I loved it. I could get anywhere I wanted, walking out my door, walking to the nearest station, whether it was a subway, a bus, or above-ground tram, and that was wonderful. I know we're not going to get that in Everett, but I think we can do a better job of serving our community. We need to create a complete streets plan and make it bicycle and pedestrian friendly too. So our buses need to work in collaboration with the other systems of transit in our city. And we need funding to support it. We also heard at the council when we were hearing the recent update that our transit department isn't well funded, and we have a structural deficit throughout the city. So we need to be very creative and explore opportunities to bring resources and revenue into our transit system so it can best serve our neighborhood. Thank you.
The next question has to do with districting. And the question is, do you support a districting measure that would require city council members to live in the districts they represent? And I'll repeat it. Do you support a districting measure that would require city council members to live in the districts they represent?
Thank you. So yes, as mayor, I support districts. I will commit to getting a districting vote on the ballot in my first year. There are policy issues with the initiative from Everett Districts Now, the one that they presented. So I could not vote in support of something that had the flaws. We're changing the nature of how we govern Everett, the structure of our city government, and that's too important not to get it right. As we get this done for the city, it will be really important that we include those who've been excluded in the process to ensure a public and transparent process that ensures community input and equity and engages citizens in all neighborhoods in this important work. Government should represent the people and reflect the community it serves, and your government should be highly accessible to each of you. Other communities have found ways to ensure representative government, like Yakima, where demographics do and should come into consideration when you draw that map. We need a districting commission to determine the number of districts, the number of council members per each district, as well as the timeline for implementation. It takes 2 council members to actively work on with city legal department to create policy. So it's really worth discussing whether 2 members in each district would be worthwhile. This is a complex issue. There are cities across our region, across the country, that have anywhere between 0 to 7 or more districts and 5 to a dozen or more council members. So it's a very complicated issue, and it's worth the districting commission digging into in a transparent process. A couple other areas that I'd like to highlight of concern in the current proposal was how Delta and Casino Road neighborhoods were handled. Delta was looped together with Northwest neighborhood, and I believe that in that process, Delta's voice would not be heard, but we would continue to hear the voice of Northwest neighborhood, which currently I think 3 of our council members reside in. Casino Road was divided into 3 districts, and some have argued that that means they get 3 council members, but that's truly not the case when you're only getting a corner of that community. Casino Road is one of our most diverse communities, where the most Hispanic community members live, and it also happens to have some of the most significant challenges. I think Casino Road needs a champion or 2 champions to serve that community that are focused strictly on Casino Road. So that is a districting process that I would support. As mayor, I will put this forward in my first year. I will support districting through an open and transparent process and a districting commission. Thank you.
Well, I've always supported districts and believe that it is our citizens' choice, and it is up to the citizens to vote and decide on the districts. I've always felt that the less involved council members were, the better it was, because it's hard to be objective when as it affects their own personal positions. But after many months of reviewing this plan that it was sent forth to us, I found it to be a very solid plan. And that in the end of the day, it did satisfy what they set out to do. It made representation throughout the city. And that's what we needed. That was the intended goal for the greater. And we need districts. They will not solve the lack of total of civic participation, but it will go a long way. We need to do many, many things. That's why I did the council liaison to the neighborhoods. We need to do more. I voted to put this plan on the ballot because I believe the committee that put this together worked very hard. They did their due diligence, and it's a great plan. And, you know, we didn't have enough people on the vote from the council to put it on the ballot this year. I would promise them I will work to get it on the ballot this next year. I'll make sure that they are part of the process and not left out from all their hard work. And I want to thank all the citizens who went out and gathered over 3,000 signatures. People at the door told me they wanted an opportunity to vote for this. So I listened and I voted yes for the vote. Thank you.
Okay, third question. You and your opponent share many similarities, but what are some of the major differences that would be important for voters to understand? I'll read it again. You and your opponent share many similarities, but what are some of the major differences that would be important for voters to understand?
Okay. Well, I have a longer and more comprehensive background. I have 28 years of business management and executive leadership, which includes retail management, where I oversaw department managers at the Aurora Village store for Frederick & Nelson. And as a buyer for Frederick & Nelson, I was in charge of over $13 million a year in sales. And for 22 years as executive director for the Shack Art Center, where our operating budget has grown by 6.5 times, raised over $7 million in our community to build our facility. I had the opportunity to be the owner's rep for the construction of our mixed-use facility, which includes 40 affordable housing units and our 20,000 square foot facility. The Shack Art Center has been more successful than we ever imagined and exceeded our financial plan projections in the first 5 years. We were awarded the governor's highest award for arts organizations in 2014. The Shack is different than some nonprofits. We are a business nonprofit model. We have 65% of our income is earned. We pay property tax, B&O tax, and sales tax, as opposed to nonprofits that are solely dependent on charitable contributions. The breadth of management is essential in being a mayor. The city is a $500 million municipal corporation, and the mayor is responsible for managing it. I know how to scale my business knowledge and experience to manage and direct it down the right path. I also have a broader professional experience than Cassie. Besides my business experience, it includes public and private education, 28 years of personnel management, and 22 years of community program development. Many collaborations and partnerships throughout Snohomish County Schools, Denny Juvenile Justice Center, Everett Community College, and many nonprofits. I've also been involved with the Snohomish County Tourism Board. Tourism is the 4th largest employer sector in our county. And with the Shack Art Center, our over 70,000 visitors and participants, 92% come from outside of Everett, and 48% are outside the county. Tourism is important to our community. I was born and raised here, and I've maintained a lifetime connection. I've lived in Seahurst, Glacier Peak, and for the past decade in the Port Gardner Bay neighborhood. I worked in the downtown core for 22 years, and I believe this is as a mayor that matters. It helps to have been here when the community has struggled, when we got through tough times, and the results of many years of hard work when the big one pays off, and to know how to lead our way forward. It's like a company who has an employee with institutional knowledge, and that is very valuable. And that is why being a local is so important. In summary, the breadth and scope of my business and professional experience.
Sorry, Judy, you're out of time.
Okay, so what differentiates me from Judy is my fresh perspective, my experience, and my leadership. I bring a fresh perspective to this city. I chose Everett. Not being born and raised here, I'm not steeped in the way we've always done things, but I bring that new insight. I bring experience from growing up in Oregon, living in other cities in Washington, and living and studying overseas for 7 years. We chose to raise our daughter in this community, a community I love and have invested in for her future and her peers' future. It is their community that we must build, steward, and support. My experience is different. It's diverse in education, animal welfare, human services, and public service. Judy and I may share similar concepts and ideas, but the devil is in the detail. Good ideas must successfully be implemented. An idea is only as strong as the skill and ability to do that. My street-level executive experience on core challenges we face right now is essential. I lead Cocoon House, and we do life and death work in a high-risk, high-stress environment, working with multiple government agencies and systems. I lead a much larger organization. Just this year, I raised $12.5 million in 1 year for our new capital project. I doubled the size of our budget from 2.5 to 5 million, and I manage nearly 100 trained team members who deal with crisis, youth and families in trauma, and who are true superheroes. And finally, my leadership. I demonstrated community leadership beyond my daily work as a CEO's council from the moment I entered this community. I'm highly invested in multiple boards, commissions, initiative, advisory councils, locally, regionally, and nationally, and all of those benefit youth and families right here in our local community. I can lead in a crisis. That's the work of human service professionals. It's the work that we do every day. We have to be prepared for the worst, respond professionally, think and act quickly as needed. I already collaborate and have strong working relationships with school leaders, superintendents, college board members, workforce partners, business leaders, nonprofit and human service leaders, housing providers, and those partnerships have been vital for the work that I've done, and they are going to be vital moving forward as we lead this city to do the work to support our community. Thank you.
Next question has to do with the Baker Heights development. For both candidates, in what direction will you drive the development of the EHA property Baker Heights that is being demolished in the Delta neighborhood? In what direction will you drive the development of the EHA property Baker Heights that is being demolished in the Delta neighborhood?
Well, you got one I don't have notes on, so good. Get to freestyle it. So first and foremost, I think what we need to do with the Baker Heights development is ensure that the families and individuals that are living in that development right now have the support and are connected to housing as they are moving out, right? We need to make sure that those individuals are moving into safe housing and have a safe place to go, that they're not just kicked out. And I know that Everett Housing Authority is working on that, and I'm very pleased to see that. I would support the Baker Heights development transitioning over to the college. We have an outstanding opportunity with the WSU and Everett Community College right there. If we could use that property for expanded either student housing or other development for our university, we're really making a college district in that part of town and improving the neighborhood of Delta. Again, we need to support the individuals living there right now and to make sure they're connected with housing and resources they need. Hopefully actually connecting them and keeping them in their communities, because I know they've built strong networks and supports. But I think that that property is going to be ideal for our university, and that's going to be ideal in creating and developing the workforce for our future.
Well, sometimes we think alike. First of all, we need to really ensure that these folks get to safe housing, and I know they've created a neighborhood. I know they have neighbors that they love and adore, and I'm hoping that they can stay somehow intact as they move this community to their new place, their new location. And I would like to make sure that we give them the social service backup to help them in this transition, because for some of them, it's going to be the first time they've moved in a very long time, and that can be very challenging emotionally. And so we really want to make sure that we're very sensitive to their needs as they do that. This location is right next to the college, and it sits right there. It makes sense that this would be an option for the growth of WSU and Everett Community College. It would be a natural fit. There could also be other things there. There could be other types of housing put in there, but I do think that the makeup of the college, it would be very beneficial to have that as an option for growth. As we've seen how great it's been with Everett Community College and their new buildings and what they've done to transform North Broadway. So I do think that the college is probably at this point the best option, but certainly would be available to look at other things too.
Okay, we're now at the fifth submitted question, and this is the exciting part of the evening for me anyway. These are the two questions. The next two questions will be questions from the Evergreen Middle School Avid students. So here's the first. The young people of Everett could use safe parks for meeting with friends or fields for softball or baseball games. Do you have any plans to increase the budget for the Parks Department to improve our green spaces? I'll read that again. The young people of Everett could use safe parks for meeting with friends or fields for softball or baseball games. Do you have any plans to increase the budget for the Parks Department to improve our green spaces?
Well, that's a great question. I will say parks in our city provide economic, ecological, and social value to our citizens. And they play such an important role in the neighborhood revitalization, and they are even more essential as we add more density. We need to make sure that we are preserving and maintaining and growing our park system. We should really be known as the city of parks. We have so many beautiful, beautiful places for parks. I know over the years, it's one of the first places that we tend to cut in a tough time economically, but we need to figure out new ways to pay for parks and to maintain those. We need to we need to make sure that they're safe. There are some great neighborhood groups out right now that are going out on the weekends, 2 or 3 times a week, to clean up our parks and make sure that they're safe and that we don't find any of the needles or debris that they have out there. So that's great. We need to explore private and public partnerships with our parks. There's no reason that we can't have our larger corporations adopt a park and be able to help maintain it and also add new infrastructure into our parks. We need to establish a parks and trail expansion plan. We've got part of it done, but we haven't completed it. We still don't have signage up, and we need to have it all the way around the city so that we have that connection. So we need to enhance our funding. I would love to see a semi-annual cleanup of all of our parks so that we get out there. All of the community can participate in that kind of a thing. And we do need more parks. We need to expand, and we need to make sure that all of our parks everywhere are given the same amount of attention as in any neighborhood.
So the question again is, could you read it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure
The young people of Everett could use safe parks for meeting with friends or fields for softball or baseball games. Do you have any plans to increase the budget for the Parks Department to improve our green spaces?
Thank you. So absolutely correct. Young people need parks. When I moved to Everett, we moved just right off of 41st, and the reason we moved in that neighborhood is because of the beautiful resource of Forest Park. You know, when I came here, I had a very young daughter. She's now 8, And we wanted to make sure she had access to those green spaces you're referencing. So I know very closely, and we still go to the park every week, so I know how important our parks are. I'd like to first prioritize parks in underserved areas where we have limited amenities. There's different parts of our community that don't have that resource that I do, that can't walk to a beautiful park. We need to make sure that we have those in those communities. I also want to improve connections and access to the parks that we have, and that's a transportation issue, making sure that we can get to our waterfront parks and expand resources throughout the community. Pocket parks are another good option to ensure that we have green spaces more locally. So in order to do this, we're going to need to look for efficiencies. You know, Everett is facing a structural deficit. It's hard to find resources, but Parks is one of those departments that has continued to take hit after hit, and I don't think it can take another hit. Our parks need our support. So we need to look for efficiencies in other parts of our government to find the funding that we need to support our local parks. I would like to continue to invite community input in the process in prioritizing where we want those parks, what resources we want to have in those parks, what each community wants to see. I also want to work with the community groups. We have a great number of community groups that are working every day to clean up our parks, to clean up needles in our parks, to make our parks more livable and beautiful. We have volunteer groups that come in and plant flowers. I want the city to work with those groups and support those groups in their efforts, help organize those groups, and have them be a part of our park system. Because parks are really about our quality of life. It's a quality of life for our youth, it's a quality of life for our families, it's a quality of life for all of us. So I believe heavily that we need to invest in our parks, we need to find the resources to do so. They're very important for our community moving forward.
This is the second student question, and the question, there's a comment and a question. We've heard about the new housing being built for homeless adults. Are there any plans to increase housing for homeless children and families? We've heard about the new housing being built for homeless adults. Are there any plans to increase housing for homeless children and families?
Yes. So yes, we have a number of housing projects coming up in our community, which is very important because we have even more housing projects that are needed than the ones that we have in the pipeline. So we have our supportive housing project that's for chronically homeless adults coming up to support 65 individuals that are currently homeless and on our streets and get them in an apartment so that they can stabilize. I happen to know a lot about the housing project that's coming up for youth because as the CEO of Cocoon House, I'm the one organization that's building it. We're developing 40 units of homeless housing for young people that will be coming online in just about a year to a year and a half from now. So these units of housing are going to be at 36 in Colby. I'm very excited about that location because it is walking distance to Sequoia High School. Our alternative high school is where our youth need to go to school, where they are re-engaging with our educational system. It's also directly on a our transit line down to Everett High, because kids don't want to walk that far, it's only 10 blocks, and also to our community colleges. So those 40 units of housing will help youth that are aging at Cocoon House. Maybe when they turn 18 and currently they can't stay there, they can actually age in place and move upstairs and continue to house young people. We also have Housing Hope's new project, Hope Workstation, and that's coming up on Broadway. I can't remember the cross street, but it's right there on Broadway, next to where the Hope Works Cafe is. And that's going to have, I believe, 65 units of housing for individuals, youth, and perhaps even some families. I forgot too, the supportive housing, the 65 units that's coming up through Catholic Housing Services also will have youth housing in it, so 10 units of youth housing. So we're going to have at least, I'm going to do quick math here, I think it's 10, 15, 25, 65 units of youth-specific housing coming online in the next year and a half here in Everett. Now, there's a number of providers that are also working on housing developments throughout the county. I don't know which of those are creating housing for youth and families, but I do know that the social service systems are working together on a housing pipeline to ensure that as a community, we can look at the needs that we have, look at the populations that we're seeing on our streets, address the gaps that we see in our community to ensure that every individual in our community that needs housing has access to housing, and working together to ensure that they're not duplicating each other's efforts, but they're complementing each other's efforts to ensure that we have a wide safety net for those in our community. Thank you.
Well, we have, as Cassie just mentioned, we do have several really great projects in the pipeline. And it's going to provide over 130 units. We have Compass Health, who's also expanding. We also have the county that's working on some detox beds and temporary housing. But all of this is like at least 18 months away. So what we need now are while the permanent solutions are on the way, we need some temporary solutions, and we need some fast. I would like to see us put in a temporary day shelter to find a place for people to go during the day. And we also need to have robust services for women and children. We have some women's shelters, but I think we need more. We also need to have smaller shelters for the extremely vulnerable populations like the LGBTQ with very special needs. So we do need to look, and we need to do that quickly. We need to have some place for these folks where they feel safe and they have safe to go, and they also have social services there waiting for them. Our community cares and is very generous, and their generosity is what we need at this time. And there is something for every business and every community member to do to help solve this problem. We do need to make sure that the stakeholders meet regularly so that we are putting all of our resources together, and we're seeing who's doing what, when, and where, and making sure that we're really reaching the folks that need the most work. That the right resources are getting to the right folks. And we need to really, as we're doing this, we need to be working on the underlying issues of safe, affordable housing for all the families. We need good paying jobs. We need to ensure that mental health is available for everyone, and resources to get it out there so that the people that are in their homes stay in their homes. We need to make sure our resources are stabilizing the folks that are still in their homes.
Okay, going back to the general audience question submissions. This is another long question. The NAACP of Snohomish County is hosting its third Allied event this Saturday. Allied is a coalition of leaders and community members who create action that makes all members of the community safe and included. Do you pledge your participation in community action led by nonprofits and grassroots organizations, and how will you ensure social issues receive proper attention from your administration? So I'm going to read the question part of that again. Do you pledge your participation in community action led by nonprofits and grassroots organizations, and how will you ensure social issues receive proper attention from your administration?
Well, definitely, this is something, as we've watched the news lately, that is really disturbing and makes us all very sad. So yes, we do need to make a stand. We need to stand up and say what's right. And inclusiveness and dealing with these social issues, we need to all make a stand on that. And I will support these efforts 100%. I think one of the things I would like to do as mayor is, first of all, is to get our diversity council reignited and expanded so that we are making sure that we're targeting all the areas in our community where there might be social issues, and making sure that we're doing what we can, working with the Office of Neighborhoods to ensure that we are taking a stand and not letting social issues get in the way of our city. Also, the Youth Advisory Council is another one that I think could be very helpful for this, and I would like to make sure that that one is reignited and also working to full speed on that. So I do support this action. We can't stand for what we've seen across the nation with these social issues. Thank you.
So, yes, absolutely. I support the NAACP Allied event. I've participated in many of those events. We have to address the hate in our community with love and courage. I have a long history of working on social justice issues. I march when I see injustice. I marched in the Women's March in DC. In December, I introduced the Safe City resolution that I drafted and brought it to City Council in direct response to the hate that we were seeing at the federal level in the last year's presidential election. At the National League of Cities training I went to, I learned about diversity, equity, and inclusion in government. I learned a lot in my 2-day training, and I would like to bring what I learned to the city. We need to partner with our leaders. We need to listen to the leaders that we have in our community. We have strong, amazing leaders in our minority community that have been speaking out against the injustice they're seeing. We need to listen to them and ask them what we can do to change and better our community. We need to bring diversity to our city government. Right now, our government does not reflect the citizens in this community. Not at the elected level, not in the working level, nowhere in our city government. It's been something that I've been working on for many years at Cocoon House. Right now at Cocoon House, our staff are more diverse than the general population of Snohomish County, but we're not yet as diverse as the youth we serve, and that continues to be our goal, as it should be. We need to hold ourselves to the higher standard and strive for that continuous improvement, outreach, and engagement, and I will absolutely do that as mayor. I was very pleased to connect our Chief of Police, Dan Templeman, with the Director of Equity and Inclusion at Everett Community College so that they could begin to work with that leader, Maria Peña, who's amazing, on how to bring more equity and diversity into our Everett Police Department. I would like to expand partnerships like that to advise the city. Elected officials, staff, and local government again, need to reflect the population they serve. We need to listen to our leaders and our constituents, and we need to celebrate this beautiful diversity that we have in our community. Thank you.
This is another long question. The question is written this way. We are having difficulty getting the police to enforce the illegal camping ordinance, even when this negatively impacts adjacent homes with children. As mayor, would you allow this situation to continue, or would you instruct the police to enforce this as a priority when neighborhoods are impacted? Would you support creating a space for parking campers or motorhomes for a nominal fee? So there's two questions, and I'll repeat it again. We are having difficulty getting the police to enforce the illegal camping ordinance, even when this negatively impacts adjacent homes with children. As mayor, would you allow this situation to continue, or would you instruct the police to enforce this as a priority when neighborhoods are impacted? And the second part of it is, would you support creating a space for parking campers or motorhomes for a nominal fee?
So the questionnaire is correct. The camping ordinance we have is very, very difficult to enforce. But parts of it have been deemed illegal, not all of it. And the reason that is if people have nowhere to go, we can't tell them they can't be outside, right? If there's no place for them to go, if the mission is full, if all of our housing programs are full, we can't ask them to leave. So that's one of the challenges with that ordinance. And then, we're seeing more and more homeless people in our community. That's why it's harder and harder to enforce it. So we have to address that problem first, and then we can actually use that camping ordinance to connect people into services, right? If we have services and space available in our housing, then that ordinance becomes a wonderful tool to connect people and incentivize and motivate them to access those resources. So first and foremost, we need to ensure that we have a rich network of services. Our Streets Initiative, we've been working on long-term solutions. We've been making great headway. That's wonderful, but what does that do for us in the short term when you've got these issues and you're right there in your neighborhood? We also need to work on short-term solutions. At the public safety meetings the last 2 weeks, we've been discussing this very issue, what we can do in our community to address the issues right now, whether that's expanding day centers and shelter, so that we have some place for folks to go during the day and at night. It could be a temporary solution, but it may be something that we can use to use the tools that we have, because right now our law enforcement officers are kind of helpless. They can't enforce these ordinances that we have. And would I support space for parking campers? Absolutely. We have that ability right now. We need a faith-based partner or another community leader to step up. We have the ability as a community to designate an area for campers. And I know the challenge that these campers present. I run Cocoon House, and we've had campers right there on our street. As a homeless youth provider, I deeply relate to the folks that are experiencing homelessness. I understand the challenges that they face, but I also, as a provider, have to keep the youth in my program safe, right? And sometimes there's illegal and dangerous activity going on in these campers, right? Sometimes it's not a local family. Sometimes it's someone else. Maybe it's a drug dealer or something, and we don't know, right? So we have to keep our kids safe. So we also have to try to find ways to move these folks along. Right now, what we're doing is moving them to different areas of that community, and that's not a long-term solution. This is going to be a policy issue that the council needs to continue to work on, and it needs to be a community solution. We, as a community, need to come up with some solutions for short and long-term to address this.
Well, we do need to figure out how we can deal with the illegal camping. We need to be able to provide our police with the right tools so that they can do what's needed. We need to work with them in making sure that our ordinances are doable, that we can enforce them, and that they are realistic for our times today. We need to be able to set priorities, and we also need to be able to work with the police on that. We need to fully staff our police so that we have enough police force out on the streets to deal with this. But we also need to look at temporary solutions, because a lot of what we're doing with is long-term, and we need some temporary fixes with day shelters and even evening shelters. So we need to really sit down and do it immediately. We can't wait any longer because it's not getting any better. We also need as far as parking for RVs, and we need to look at that. I mean, that is a temporary solution. We need to be creative when we start to look at this. We do need to, we just need to be creative when we look at all of these questions.
Okay, and that was our last question of the evening. So now it's time for both candidates to give us closing statements, and they have 5 minutes each for that.
Well, we had a lot of really great hard questions tonight, so thank you all for that. Well, as your next mayor, I really want to create a safe, inclusive, vibrant city where neighborhoods are invigorated and where our city's rich history is celebrated and where our natural environment is preserved and our sidewalks are bustling with people engaged in healthy enterprise and where all the people can reach their full potential through education, jobs, commerce, volunteerism, culture, and recreation. I believe I'm best qualified to be the mayor and the best qualified to deliver real results for our residents. Born and raised in Everett, and I have continued my lifetime connection. I graduated from Everett High School and went to Central to earn my degree in education. My comprehensive business background includes 28 years of business management and executive leadership, including retail, and as a buyer, I was responsible for $13 million in sales. For 22 years as executive director for the Shack Arts Center, our operating budget has grown over 6.5 times. In addition to my professional experience, which includes public and private education, 28 years of professional management, and 22 years of community program development. The breadth of the management is essential to being the mayor. I know how to scale my business knowledge and experience to manage and direct us down the path. As you've heard tonight, my top priorities are increasing public safety, reducing addiction and homelessness in our community, and ensuring that every resident in every neighborhood has their voice heard at City Hall. Accomplishing these will enable us to provide a quality and caring community for all. I'm ready to bring a fresh approach and new ideas to City Hall, and I will get started immediately on an emergency day shelter, filling the vacancies of our police department, restoring the Office of Neighborhoods to a full cabinet position in my administration, and I am committed to ensure that the community district stakeholders are front and center as we work to get the districting ballot on the ballot in 2018. So I bring my strong financial expertise, my ability to work with diverse interests, my commitment to results, and my lifelong connection with Everett to the job as your mayor. And I'm Judy Tuohy, and I hope I earned your vote tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the Neighborhood Association and our library for hosting this forum, and thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here this evening. As I shared, I'm running for mayor because I'm passionate about our city, and I have the skill set and experience to address our pressing challenges and move us forward. Serving our community is my passion, a passion I've demonstrated as CEO of Cocoon House, city council member, and a community volunteer. As CEO of Cocoon House is a nonprofit I've been working to break the cycle of homelessness and helping youth leave the streets and stabilize through outreach, housing, and prevention. Our organization helps hundreds of youth and families each year. Leading the incredible team of staff I have led to serve youth and families of our community for these past years has been an absolute privilege and honor. I've also served as your council member, Cultural Commission Liaison, Senior Center Advisory Board member. I'm currently chair of the Lodging Tax Advisory Board, chair of the Public Safety Committee. I serve on the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, the General Government Subcommittee, and I'm liaison to the Safe Streets. A year ago, I was also appointed to serve on the National League of Cities Human Development Federal Advocacy Committee, working with fellow leaders across the country on policy recommendations around healthcare, equity, housing, and homelessness. Additional organizations I've been a part of in service to our community include the Statewide Coordinating Committee Against Sex Trafficking, the Homeless Policy Task Force, the National Technical Expert Group for LGBTQ Youth Homelessness, the Fiscal Advisory Council for Everett Public Schools, the Puget Sound Runaway and Homeless Youth Collaboration, the Sexual Exploitation Intervention Network, United Way's Family Matter Vision Council, the Housing Consortium of Snohomish County, and I'm past president of my Rotary Club, South Everett Mukilteo Rotary Club. My vision is to improve public safety and grow living wage jobs in our community by addressing the root causes of some of the challenges we're experiencing. By addressing the conditions of homelessness, addiction, and mental illness with compassion and innovation, we will strengthen the community for all. I deeply understand the challenges we are facing, and I am the candidate with the street-level experience as an executive in successfully accomplishing that vision. I also have the business experience and leadership ability to make tough decisions, build a strong team, implement a plan, and successfully move the city forward. With collaboration, coordination, and partnership, we can create safer streets, healthier citizens, stronger business, and a more vibrant and thriving community. My endorsements include state elected leaders such as Senators McCoy, Leas, Palumbo, and Hobbs, and Representative Springer. Local elected leaders like our current mayors from Edmonds, Linwood, Arlington, Marysville, Mukilteo, and Everett, as well as a number of local city council members. Port Commissioner Bachman, Everett Public School Board member Tracy Mitchell, and County Councilman Terry Ryan, and public safety leaders like Sheriff Trineri and former Sheriff and Chief Scharf. The Everett Herald has endorsed me, and progressive organizations like Snohomish County Young Democrats, National Women's Political Caucus, and Planned Parenthood. Labor unions like the Carpenters Union, the Longshoremen, and AFSCME Union of Washington and State Council of Employees, as well as business leaders, community leaders, nonprofit leaders. I think that's what we want to see in a nonpartisan seat, someone who can bring all sides of the table to find the best solutions for Everett. I've been knocking on doors, and I'm really excited about the passion that I've seen from our community members. I want to nurture that passion and use it to improve our city. Everett is truly one of the most beautiful places in the world. I want to celebrate our unique culture, history, and diversity. I want us to work together to make and ensure housing is within reach for all of our citizens. We can protect the beauty of our region while growing and supporting innovation and creating new business opportunities. And we can make our streets safe and help those in need with compassion while creating a bright future for all of our residents. In closing, I'd like to share my commitment to ensuring our government is working with integrity and transparency and in collaboration together with the citizens we serve. If I have the honor of serving as your mayor, I promise no one will work harder for you and with you to make Everett a stronger and safer community. Thank you. I'm Cassie Franklin, and I ask for your support and vote.
Thank you very much for being here this evening. And thank you, too, for the folks that are in the audience. I really appreciate you taking the time, your indulgence, to sit through this last hour and a half. Take your time leaving, grab something to eat on the way out. We are going to have another meeting like this with these comfortable chairs in a week from tonight. And so it'll be the same format. It'll be the council members and the school board. And we hope we see some familiar faces then. If you would be willing to carry your chairs that way so that we can stack them after you've sat in those comfortable chairs all night, I would appreciate it. Thanks again.